Welcome everyone to the Micro Summit to Unlock Your Inner Healer, a summit for self-discovery and transformation. And today I am turning the tables a little bit. My dear friend and colleague, Jeannie Hopkins, is going to actually be interviewing me, and she will be introducing me, and we will have a wonderful discussion. And I hope that you have things that you each walk away with that make you feel a little bit more empowered to take your life back. So thank you, Jeannie, so much for being here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to be here with me.
Well, thank you, Claudia, and you're welcome. It's my pleasure. As just a little beginning note, as having been a client of yours, it's my pleasure to be a part of this launching of the summit, and hopefully people will hear some of the joy and the empowerment that I did experience when I was with you as a client. So
Thank
I'm
you.
delighted to be able to help.
Thank
I'd
you.
like to start by reading your bio, and I'm going
Yeah.
to read it because I don't want to stumble through it. As a holistic lifestyle coach, Claudia's passion is empowering her clients to heal their relationships with themselves, to learn to reprioritize themselves, and to commit to themselves fully. There's a lot of confusion and frustration at knowing what to do, but not how to do it. And when you don't consistently feel good and you're not sure why, it's painful. As a coach, guide, and mentor in a judgment free place, she lovingly supports, challenges, and inspires her clients to move beyond what they've known, to experience transformation, to live their best selves. Her mission and philosophy: with incremental changes, one can create a lifetime of change. She believes when you change your lifestyle, eating, habits, and thinking, your life is transformed. And when you have a confident, compassionate relationship with yourself, everything that follows is positive and healing. She's certified in EFT, emotional freedom technique, holistic coaching, trained in conscious relaxation, and has over 20 years in holistic healing, and accesses universal spiritual principles to guide her coaching work. So, that having been said, let's just jump right in with the first question. I'm sure everyone would like to know how you got into this in the first place. What made you decide on this avenue of sharing with others?
Thanks for asking. So it really was through my own healing journey that I started on this path. I kind of stumbled a lot in my own life trying to, I'd say, fix myself. It started happening for me. I guess there's always a couple of things that kind of culminate, that kind of bring the pain to the place of can no longer do this anymore. And for me, it was a combination, I'd say, of relationships and food that really brought me to a place of this is not happiness, and this is me not being okay with me. And the first doorway for me was, I'd say, probably a traditional route, and maybe other people can relate to it, is I started in therapy because I thought, oh, okay, let me figure out what's wrong with me. And it gave me some insight, I'd say. I learned, some things that I didn't know about myself, but it didn't solve my problem. It didn't really give me answers. But which is why I actually kind of started down I started to go to social work school, and I thought I should be a social worker. But then I realized about halfway, quarter way through, it's not my path. It's not what I believed in. And then I started finding some other pathways that started to really make sense. How our emotions are connected to our body, and how that creates misalignment, and how it's not so separate. And that just really resonated with me. And I started training in body work, shiatsu massage, and then I got passionate about yoga, and then I discovered coaching, and I realized that coaching would actually allow me to offer people all the things that were so important to me in my transformational experience and my healing. And so that really became the pathway that I found that I really wanted to offer to others.
Thank you. Was there a specific turning point for you?
Well, it's interesting. I mentioned that it was food and relationships, and I had gotten into a significant relationship with somebody, and I found I really was brought to the place of within myself. I had the awareness. It was kind of my aha, and I think everybody has some kind of bottom, whether it's they're on the floor, some way. But for me, that was my aha. Was I was using food in a way I just was not comfortable with. I felt I had a lot of shame, embarrassment, and I thought I have a secret side to me, and I didn't want him to find out about it. And I thought having that kind of secrecy is going to keep me from being able to have a really intimate relationship with somebody. And so I feel like I was fortunate because I would consider myself young. I was in my mid 20s, and it was truly a aha moment, and it truly opened the doorway for all the things that I have experienced, and for where I'm at today and being able to be of service.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
What's the biggest challenges your clients face?
So I, I'd say that the biggest thing is that there's a lot of shame in not being able to do things themselves. That was my experience. I kept trying to fix myself because I thought I should be able to figure this out. We live in sort of this pick yourself up by the bootstraps kind of mentality, and it keeps people stuck. There's like a shame cycle, embarrassment that they can't do it, so they don't want to tell anybody. And that was my experience as well. But then that just keeps things going even more. And I'd say the other thing is, I was recently somewhere and they were saying something about this being a narcissistic society. And I think that it's an interesting buzzword. And I think it causes people to think, oh, if I look at myself, that means somehow there's something wrong with me. I shouldn't go and look within and do my work. And I think that thinking keeps people from being able to give themselves permission, or it feels selfish in some way. I'm supposed to take care of others. I don't get to take care of myself. That thinking really keeps people from being able to turn within and get the help they need.
Absolutely. I've experienced that myself.
Right? Yeah. And it keeps you thinking there's something wrong with me, that I need someone to help me.
Exactly. And there's a lot of shame, like you said, out in the world towards people who think they need help too. Even
Right.
though someone will say, go get some help, if there's still a judgment that you shouldn't need to go get some help. You should be able to do it yourself. And so it's great that, what I was talking about, you being so accepting of your clients, it allows us to come in and just be in a place where we aren't judged and we are accepted for what's going on with us. And that's so, I don't want to say totally rare, but it's uncommon, to find someone that can be that accepting, and you have that gift.
Thank you. And I think, what you said just reminds me of, there is a stigma in telling somebody that you're working with somebody. I still think that, kind of what goes back to what you said, that kind of, judgment or shame or, um, yeah. So, yeah.
How can people feel self-acceptance when they don't really like themselves?
Right. And you and I've talked about this, because it's such a thing. How do I accept myself? And it's interesting. It's kind of a double-edged sword because people say, I don't want to accept myself because I don't like where I'm at. Why do I want to accept this when I don't like this? Um, and it is the paradox, right? And I know it was true for myself as well. It was only until it came to self-acceptance that things changed. And we're taught to, it goes back to that kind of fix it mentality. I just want to fix myself. I just want to get this, whether it's weight or it's money or it's a relationship. I just want to fix it. I don't want to accept it. Um, and in every situation in my life, it was only until that place of surrender is a place of acceptance. I get it. This is what it is. And it's a place of coming to that place within ourselves of turning to ourselves and having kindness and compassion instead of the judgment in ourselves of how could I have been so stupid? How did I let this happen? What's wrong with me? That mentality keeps us in that place of not liking ourselves, resisting ourselves. In that line, right? What we resist persists. Um, and so truly turning to accept ourselves doesn't mean we won't change or don't want to change, but it's part of the process to change.
Yes, as you were talking, I guess the word that came up for me was fear.
Mm.
It's like there's a lot of, I know for myself, it was fear that I couldn't change, fear that nothing would ever change, fear that if I did change, I wouldn't be able to handle it. I didn't know what, sometimes the known is safer than the unknown. And so it was easier to just stay in the pain than to face that fear and then reach out and be willing to move forward.
So true, Jeannie. It's so true. And that fear, right, is what keeps us further and then it makes our hole even deeper, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I think we both experienced in our life that, staying in a situation longer because of the fear of what would happen if we moved out, and then finding out it's a lot easier to just go through it. And it's not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Exactly. That is so true. Well, this sort of moves back into the next question, which is about self care. Why is self care so important?
Right? Because, it's so interesting when it's kind of like goes back to like what's the most difficult reason, hardest thing for people to do when they reach out for help, right? Is to admit they need help. And so we admit we don't when we don't admit that we need help, we don't give ourselves space to take care of ourselves. We think, oh, I just need to focus more on this. I need to fix this more. I need to put more energy on the outside. But then we neglect ourselves. And then sometimes people find that they get really sick from so much neglect. And it isn't, and this is what I tell people I work with is you don't have to get sick to start taking care of yourself. And that to me is why self-care is so important, because self-care is a maintenance. It is an ongoing gift that you give to yourself. And it is the gift of kindness. It is the gift of sustaining nice practices for yourself. It could be not forcing yourself to eat food that isn't good for you. It can be not forcing yourself to say yes to things that you actually feel a no for. Self care is really you caring for yourself like you would a child. It's like you listen to what they need and you help them get it. And that is self care. It's listening to what we need. And sometimes people say, I don't know what I need because I'm so far away from myself. Um, and that's where it starts with okay, start simple, start small, daily practices to start taking care of yourself, like eating meals. That can be a thing for people is they just skip meals because they're so busy. They just give themselves time to sit down for a meal. So for some people, maybe that's when you start. Start eating breakfast. If you never eat breakfast, start. Self care can be as simple as that. It can be as simple as giving yourself permission to, put nice, clothes on your body that you actually like instead of saying, this is good enough. It'll do just to get me out the door.
It sounds like what you're describing would be what someone might call a self care practice that you would do regularly. Is there anything, is that correct? Or anything you'd like to add to that?
It is. So, right, a self care practice, and you and I've talked about this as well. Like, as meditators, we know that in beginning a meditation practice, it's a practice, right? You don't start being able to have a very still mind, and sometimes, for me, a long time meditator, I still sometimes don't have a super quiet mind. But it's a practice. So, I know that the more I do it, the better I get. I've done yoga for many, many years. And what I know is that daily commitment, small changes make a huge difference. So, starting a self care practice can be one of my favorite suggestions to give a client is to look in the mirror and just start by saying, I love, accept, and appreciate myself. To just say that and to say it out loud and to look yourself in the mirror into your eyes and say that, that is a simple practice that starts to shift things. People will tell me, I can't say that to myself. I'm like, but you've been saying things to yourself all the time that are super mean. So why would you not say something nice to yourself? Well, it just seems wrong. It doesn't seem true. I'm like, these practices simple, but give you really good information about yourself, what you're currently telling yourself. Sometimes we don't even hear the language because it's like that white noise. You don't even hear it anymore. You don't realize how much you're in that messaging of negativity toward yourself.
Exactly. Well, what would you say is the hardest part about reaching out and hiring a coach?
Much of what I mentioned before is that there's so much judgment about asking for help. And there's also a belief of, I'm not worth it. I'm not worth investing in. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve that kind of attention. It's kind of putting other people, there's others, it's for other people, it's not for me. And the people that I've worked with have all said that the work that we've done together has been absolutely life changing. Um, I think of my client Anna, who had two small children, and she was in business with her husband. And she really struggled. She struggled making a routine for herself. She was pretty depressed. Um, she kind of hated getting up in the morning because everything felt like too much. She told me, secretly, I'd like to move to an island and just not tell anybody where I'm going. Um, and the work we did together, like, helped her put a schedule together. It helped her give her permission to take care of herself. And she hadn't done that. She had felt like that was selfish. And so being able to overcome that idea that I want to feel better, I deserve to feel better, allows my clients to move into a very different experience with themselves. And it's really hard and then this was true for me, when I had not experienced myself in this way, I didn't know myself as that person. I'd never been that person. I'd always been the person who had, these issues, whether it was relationship or weight or misery. But I didn't know myself without that and free. And so I think that's the hardest thing for my clients when they first come, is to overcome the idea that somehow they don't deserve it. They're not worth it.
One of the things you mentioned that I think is worth talking about a little bit, the difference between men and women in some ways. Men would have issues with being really busy with their work and those types of activities. It seems like it might be harder sometimes for women because not only if they're mothers and their wives and they work, they could do all kinds of things. Plus the message is that as a woman, you kind of need to do all of those things really, really successfully without any kind of stress. That I would think makes it harder to reach out, harder to admit that we aren't super women. We can't do it all in the way that the outside world thinks we should do it. Have you found that to be the case?
So true. And thank you so much for really referencing that, because it is a thing, right? I mean, I think that that is really hard for women because we've been programmed, consciously or unconsciously, to take care of others. And for women to admit, hey, I need help. Hey, I'm not doing well here. I'm struggling, is truly an important acknowledgement. And women are much more emotionally affected. And societally, that's not truly what is welcomed or honored here. And so for women who are, wanting to be a really good mom and, show up at work and be, in their relationship, so a lot of hats that women are wearing. And I know that it is something that is really hard to overcome. And it's one of the greatest gifts. And many times when women come to me, particularly moms, they say, one of the biggest reasons I'm doing this is for my daughter, is I don't want to pass this on to my daughter. I don't want to be that role model for her. I saw my mom not taking care of herself. She had different struggles, but I have the awareness. I don't want to pass this on to my daughter. So thank you so much for referencing that, because that is really, really important to acknowledge.
Indeed, and you're welcome. We've covered a lot of subjects. Is there anything else that you want to share with your listeners that you have not covered so far?
I There is one of the things that I, talk about a lot is that small incremental changes do create a lifetime of change. And you and I've talked about this, and it's not an uncommon thing with my clients is that they're very black and white. They either are all in or they're all out. My experience, the only thing that works is consistency, small incremental changes. And why that is because it actually is sustainable. You can make small incremental changes. And when you make small changes in a week or a month or 2 months, you look back and like, oh my gosh, look at what's happened. And those big things, maybe you go to a big goal setting seminar, you go to a big workshop, or you go on a big diet or something like that. And then it you fall flat because then it's over. Then what? And small incremental changes really allow people to be in the process and experience what's going on in the process, and then be able to see change and also have a routine that they can consistently maintain.
Yes, that word sustainability has been a big kind of almost a buzzword in the outer world right now, but it is very true from my own experience. I had tried so many diets and so many ways to change behaviors that weren't helpful. But when I did it in incremental changes and one day at a time or whatever you want to use, it was sustainable. And you're right. You look back over your shoulder and you think, oh my gosh, it's been 6 months, it's been a year, it's been 5 years, 20 years, whatever. And it's like, how did that happen? Well, just like what you said, small incremental changes. We're not taught to do that. So sometimes we need someone to help us learn to do that. And sounds like you're one of those people that can do that. So,
Thank you, Julie. Yeah, it is. I think that, when you say that, it reminds me of, clients that I've worked with over time will say, you know what, in the past, I got bored and that's why I quit, because small incremental changes can feel slow. And we do these, whether it's a diet or a goal setting workshop or a big seminar, whatever, we do because it's exciting and it's fun and the maintenance can feel really boring and we don't want to do it. And having the support and accountability to move through the boredom actually helps us get to the next level. And it brings to mind for me that idea that a plan actually brings freedom. Structure can bring freedom. And I know for me, this was very true, is that, as somebody who really values my freedom, I didn't want structure. I really didn't want structure. But the truth is that when I had structure, it really was the freedom because I was no longer trying to figure things out, spending all that energy trying to figure out what I should do. It's like, oh, I just do this, and then I'm free to do things I actually like to do. So,
yes, I used to hate the word discipline. It had such a negative connotation and I wasn't good at it and I didn't like it until I heard someone say that discipline is freedom. And it gave me an opportunity to look at it from a different viewpoint. And it does change things because it really is. You don't have to think about it so much. It's like it's not in your awareness constantly trying to control and get something done. It just starts to happen. And then you are free to do other things, to focus on the things that are important to you. Well, thank you so much, Claudia. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
no, I want to say I'm so delighted to be part of this wonderful opportunity to have us all come together to share pieces. And I feel like holistic healing is so near and dear to my heart. I've been on this path for well over 20 years, and it is my absolute mission to continue to move this forward because I know that as we change our thinking, as we change our internal processes and our habits, we do create a lifetime of change. And I I really hope that there are takeaways everybody has from here. And yeah, that is my greatest hope. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, I hope the summit will go very, very well. I have no doubt that it will be just what people need. If someone does want to pursue this and get to know you better, how might they get a hold of you?
Yes, so I have a couple of ways. I have a 4-step guide that I have created for healing, and it really takes you through 4 different aspects that you can put into practice, has simple practices. It has a bit of a training in it, and I will share the link. I will share the link after this recording. And then for those of you who are feeling like I really could use some more support, and you would like some one-to-one attention, I have put together a one-to-one healing session, and it will help you really learn some of the practices and be able to put a plan together that is for you. It's more customized and designed for your lifestyle. And that is a one-to-one session that is over the phone. It's about 45 minutes, and it's normally a $295 value. But I am excited, really excited to offer this to you as my gift to you. So all you have to do is access the link that I will share with you after this session. And I look forward to speaking with you if you are somebody who feels like I actually need some help. And I look forward to talking to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Claudia. It's been a
Mm.
delight.
My absolute pleasure. And Jeannie, I again thank you so much for being a part of this summit. You're an important person in my life, and having you part of the summit means so much. Means so much.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure, and I love you too.
Mhm. Thank you all for listening and being a part of the self-discovery and transformational healing summit. And we will speak with you soon. Bye, everybody.